You're listening to Packers Talk Network.
Packers Talk.
Do you want to experience the thrill of a Packers game at Lambeau Field? If so, be sure to get your game tickets from the longtime trusted source in Wisconsin, Ticket King. Visit their locations in Milwaukee and Green Bay, or just go to their website, theticketking.com. Again, that's theticketking.com.
Packers Therapy.
It's Chris and Dave following a Packers victory, the 6th in a row. This one's significant, Dave, as the Packers beat the Detroit Lions. 6 in a row means the Packers are NFC North champions, the 4th seed in the playoffs. I left them for dead at 4-6. To be honest, I can't remember if you did or not. You probably didn't. You probably saw this coming, but I certainly did not. I really thought, that they were just going to kind of stumble to like an 8-8 finish. It was really hard for me to believe at that time that they were going to run off 6, but they did, and they did it on the road, and they did it behind a defense that just banged up in the secondary unbelievably. Somehow they got a way to get this thing done. I'm impressed. What are your feelings, Dave?
Well, if I recall, I think you were even more optimistic than I was. Not pessimistic. You were more optimistic than I was at 4-6. I think I wanted everyone to be fired. If it's not like anyone can go back and check what I said at the time.
No.
But it is pretty remarkable. I'd like to talk about this run the table comment because people are trying to kind of think about, does he mean run the table through the playoffs or the Super Bowl? Does he mean that? Okay. Or did he? I don't think he meant anything, to be honest. But I think he just said it as a way of, let's throw it out there and see what happens. It is amazing how they were able to, turn things around on offense. But I always felt like the defense would play better if the offense played better, and they did. But they were able to do it with basically such trouble in the defensive backfield and with, I would say no running game because they had no running back to speak of, but they were able to kind of grind one out. And so I got to hand it to the coaching staff for these last 6 games, right?
I do. About that.
I do. The last 6 games, I feel like if they could have done what they did in the last 6 games, they should have been able to do the same against Tennessee or have a closer game against Washington. But it's a shame that they couldn't kind of figure things out sooner, but they did, and they didn't lose the team. I think that's one thing that we're very spoiled with. We don't see the Packers ever kind of lose their professionalism, at least not since the Holmgren, maybe the Ray Rhodes year. There was kind of a falling apart. I thought the Sherman and now McCarthy, certainly McCarthy years, even as they've lost, it kind of felt like it stuck together. There's kind of hints of people upset, but not this full-scale mutiny that you see on some other teams. So I don't love McCarthy. I don't think he's, they show that he has won more division titles, or he's tied with 3 other coaches, and they're like Hall of Fame coaches. And he doesn't deserve to be in that rank, I don't think. But,
I think that stat was only 4 NFL coaches have been to the playoffs 8 consecutive years. And I think they were Chuck Noll,
Landry,
Tom Landry, and Bill Belichick.
That's right. You're right. And Mike McCarthy.
And so that's coaches that have taken their teams 8 consecutive times to the postseason. And you can add on that Mount Rushmore the carved and chiseled. Did you? Without that beard, he's looking a little jolly for the holiday season.
Yeah.
Well,
what's even better? You retweeted and I retweeted too. There is, I think it's the quarterback coach that looks exactly like him.
It's like a mini him. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if mini is the right word to say.
No.
But they must be doing a very good job. I saw that Jason Willie wrote an article about the defensive back coach Joe Witt.
Right.
I didn't read it, but I just heard about it, and I thought it sounded pretty interesting.
Dyslexia, I think, was the bottom line there, that Joe Witt is liked and respected, but he had to overcome a learning disability in order to get to the level that he's at right now as a DB coach. And I think a lot of people see him as a future defensive coordinator.
Yeah, and I think when they were 4-6, I was thinking why are these position coaches getting the jobs that they have? Why is Edgar Bennett your offensive coordinator? Did he really earn that job? And I didn't know much of the others, but now I'm starting to think with the 6-0 run that maybe they have very good kind of second or assistant coaches in this group too, because they were able to turn things around pretty miraculously, and it really starts with number 12.
Mm-hmm.
He played an unbelievable game, and I mean he's in the lights. He's trying to shoot for an MVP, but and a lot of times he'd fall flat in those kind of games. The big time for him. I mean, if they were up 35 points, he would look amazing, after that. But rarely would he, under pressure, kind of have an amazing game. I don't know if that's a fair comment. Do you think that's fair? I can't say he's like the Michael Jordan of the NFL. He's not been money every time there's been a tight game. But this one he certainly was, and I think he might have earned himself another MVP.
Well, I'll take your first point before I get to your second point.
Second, third, and fourth.
Yes, he had a great game. 126 quarterback rating, 300 yards passing. Again, no interceptions. Going to wind up the season leading the National Football League in touchdown passes. And if you look at it in the aggregate, the guy has had another great season, and there's been nobody better than him really since the midpoint of the season.
No.
So I think that's safe to say. And is there another player who is as valuable to his team as Rodgers is to the Packers? I don't think so. Maybe Elliott in Dallas, maybe. But other than that, I don't think so. I mean, heck, the Patriots were 3-1 without Tom Brady.
Right.
So
Atlanta's got a good running game.
And Atlanta's got a good running game there. Terrible defense, good running game. I will give the nod to Matty Ice, and I've been critical of him on this podcast in the past. I thought there was a lot of praise kind of thrown his way because he has a cool nickname. He has had this ability at times to lead his team to victory. And as I deconstructed those, some of those late drives were less than spectacular and didn't have to move the ball far, but they were able to get a long field goal and win. But I don't think there's any denying his numbers this year. I mean, the guy has put up a tremendous season for a team that has got a first-round bye. I think that exceeded a lot of people's expectations, and this is probably his year. I think this is the year he wins the MVP. But it's so hard, Dave. I don't know if you have the same, kind of, questions about what the MVP really means as I do. Is it an award for the most valuable player to his team, or is he the most valuable player in the league? In other words, the best player in the league. And I don't know if I can say that Aaron Rodgers was the best player in the league this year. That may be Matt Ryan, or if we really broke it down like Pro Football Focus, maybe it would be a different player at a different position. Maybe it would be Ezekiel Elliott. I don't know. But as far as being the most valuable to his team, that's probably Rodgers. I just don't think that's the way most people see this award, and I don't think that's the way most people vote on it. So I suspect in a couple of weeks when the voting is made public, I think you'll see Matt Ryan as the winner. Rodgers probably top 3, I think. I maybe even second.
Yeah, you might be right. I think the award stands for the best offensive year, best offensive stat year. And Ryan might have the best stats overall. He has fewer touchdowns, but he's got a higher quarterback rating. I don't know about yards, if total passing yards.
He's got more yards, too.
He
has. Yeah, I just saw that he's just under 5,000 yards.
They have a better record, and he was consistent all year. Brady, I think because he missed games.
He missed a quarter of the season, yeah.
Yeah, you ding him for that, and his stats aren't as good. But Rodgers finished so fast. I think people have... they remember what they saw lately, and for them
recency bias.
Recency bias, thank you. Going 6-0 and then saying run the table and then having it done.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think Matt Ryan, other than maybe in Atlanta, he's a big deal, and there's all kinds of quotes he has. But I think Aaron Rodgers this year for him is pretty amazing. So I wonder if he'll get a little bit more of a nudge forward. I could see co-MVP between Ryan and Rodgers possibly. you're right, Ezekiel. I just don't see. I think the two rookies end up kind of canceling each other out, but it really doesn't. All that really doesn't matter. I wonder if Rodgers cares that much, but I guess he probably does.
Well, it's legacy for him. I mean, I think this year for me secured the fact that Aaron Rodgers is going to be a Hall of Famer. You know, I was one of the last holdouts. I think he's had a really good career, but he sat for 3 years essentially. His second MVP, I think, moved me in that direction. And when he began to decline at the middle of last year and the first part of this year, I thought, well, you know, he was kind of that Ron Wolf fart in the wind, you know, where he, you know, had some really good seasons, but, you know, he wasn't one of the great ones. Well, the way he's closed out this season has really kind of secured, in my mind, the fact that, you know, this guy is I think an NFL Hall of Famer when his career is wrapped up. I think most people probably thought that, but I'm slow to come around to things, and this was one of those situations. But I'd like to quote to you from our military attaché, who got in touch with us following the game, took time away from a research paper that he's doing at the War College to write to us. And this is the way he described the MVP race. He really thinks that Rodgers, you know, is the guy. But of course, you know, Captain Dave is of course a Packers fan, and he said the award has to have some pizzazz behind it. And Matty Ice is about as pizzazz filled as a dollar store tartar control toothpaste.
Yeah.
Then he goes on to say about Tom Brady, luxury mattress Uggs donning golden boy, missed a quarter of the season, and he played the Jets, Bills, and Dolphins twice. Now, in fairness, the Dolphins are a playoff team.
Yeah,
okay?
And we got the Bears, Vikings, and Lions.
And then we look at well, thank you very much. That's just where I was going. So I think what you're saying, if I'm not mistaken, is that there is a certain sizzle that goes with Aaron Rodgers because, you know, he did say something earlier in the season, at the nadir of the season, at the bottom point. You know, he said, I think we could run the table. Now, he didn't predict it. It wasn't Joe Namath. I'm kind of sick and tired of people saying that he predicted this or he, you know, said it was going to happen. He never did. He said, I think we could run the table.
Right.
And the fact that they did, now that's actually pretty cool. And that does say something. And I know you have a leadership position at your work, and I know that sometimes in my work, there are occasions where you say things more on, I don't want to say it's a lie. That's a bad word. You say things that you think are necessary to be said at a particular moment because you're trying to inspire or motivate.
Right.
And I think that is kind of what Aaron Rodgers was doing. He was trying to shine a light at a time of great darkness. And so he said, oh, you know, I've been watching this practice, and I think we could run the table. And I mean, what's the downside of doing that? If they don't, well, so what? All he said was, I think that we could do it, and we didn't. Big deal. But as it turns out now, he is something more than a dollar store tartar control toothpaste. He's got a little pizzazz because of that. And it's on top of the whole relax business of a couple seasons ago.
Right.
So that does make him a more appealing candidate for MVP because he does have a little sizzle that goes along with it. I just don't think substantively that's going to be enough for him to win the award.
Probably not. But, you know, one thing I want to mention, too, is what makes him so great is he rushed for 42 yards. I don't know how many first downs that was for, but that was probably at least 2 first downs he ran for, maybe.
Oh, I would think more than that.
But more than that is almost every drop back that he has, he's got to get away from pressure. I was watching Eli Manning against the Redskins near the end, and there was some pressure he had, and he went down like a wet paper bag, just went right down to the ground. And I thought, Rodgers does not do that. In fact, almost every play, they talk about our offensive line being, you know, really solid, but I don't know if you had an immobile quarterback if you wouldn't have 4 or 5 sacks a game or more. I mean, he's getting out of trouble almost every drop back that they have, and then he creates something out of nothing. And sometimes they're amazing elusive plays. He had one where you kind of lost sight of him, and he pops out and threw for a first down.
That was remarkable. That
yeah.
he went underneath he wasn't a blitzer, I don't think, but whoever was the defensive player had him dead to rights, and he somehow ducked out of it, and not just didn't he avoid the sack, he was able to find a receiver and get a positive play. That is incredible.
That is. I don't know if Matt Ryan has a lot in his resume this year of those types of plays. But, it doesn't matter. People talk about the MVP, and when I hear other people talk about it, I go, well, who cares? I want to win the Super Bowl. That's all I care about. And maybe we should talk about that now, is what do you think their chances are? I saw an article today that said that the Packers may have lost by winning, that they're worse off playing at home against the Giants, who are a pretty hot team. They've got good wide receivers, good quarterback that has won at Lambeau in December or in January before.
Twice, yeah.
Versus, going out to Seattle, which is a team that's really hurting. What do you think about that? I'll hear your answers.
Yeah, this kind of goes to what you were talking about before, and about the less than stellar postseason games that Rodgers has had. And I can't, by memory go through every single one of them, but the way it seems to me, when he's had subpar games in the postseason, they have been outside games. The games where he has played well in the postseason have been inside. The game against Atlanta after the 2010 season, the Super Bowl game, the game against Arizona after the 2009 season, this most recent game. When I think back, he's been a pretty good postseason quarterback when he's been inside, or when he's been in an environment. Yeah, or an environment where it's positive. Where he's been bad in those games are games where he's been outside. I think of the NFC Championship game in 2010. That game was not great. I think, as I recall, he was okay in that Seattle NFC Championship game, but I don't think he was great by any means that day. Game they should have won, but still, he was probably good enough to win, but he wasn't transcendent like he was at Atlanta in 2010. Now, the Philadelphia game, that postseason, and that was outside, but he's not as good in the cold conditions. I know this isn't a news flash, but Brett Favre, until the end of his career at least, he played very well outside in lousy conditions, probably up until the time he was maybe 35 or so, something like that. And right now, Rodgers has never really shown that ability. So I can see the argument that people are making that maybe they'd be better off going to Seattle. It's a team that's kind of been stumbling around. But, man, CenturyLink Field is a hard place to play. It is so loud, and they'll have all that 12th man crap going
13.
on.
They have 13. They have the crowd and the refs, right?
Well, that as it was the case in 2012. Yeah, I'll never forgive Golden Tate. I don't care how well or how much he plays. I just can't stay on the guy.
I can't either. Yeah, I will never see him as other than the guy that stole that ball. Yeah,
exactly right. So I can't say that I would prefer them going to Seattle. I like the fact that they cleaned the plate. They ran the table. They finished it off. They're the NFC North champions, that they didn't back into the playoffs, but they actually, won their way in. I don't think it's necessarily good for them to be playing outside in terms of performance, but I do like having postseason games at Lambeau Field. I don't like the fact they're playing against a team that's done well against them in January and against a quarterback that I don't think is that good, but he does seem to play well in that stadium in that month. I don't know if this trend will continue. What concerns me more about the game, Dave, is just I don't think the matchups favor the Packers, and that's what concerns me more.
Well, I think the fact that the Giants have a lot of good receivers. They can go two or three receivers deep, maybe more. I know they have one very good one, who I guess we're going to have to line up with Gunter as our best corner.
That's what I'm talking about. That's the kind of matchups that make me nervous.
So they should. But, I mean, it all has to come down to, can our offense score? Can we score, get it 7-0, then 14-7, score touchdowns, not field goals. You're right, the cold weather doesn't help that, but their offense is clicking. And, the defense got better. when they had a lead here against the Lions. I mean, against that whole 6-0, I thought the defense played better, but it all had to do with that the offense played better. So, it was really amazing with this game against the Lions is when Rollins got hurt, and which was I had not heard any update.
It did not look like he should have been hurt as badly as he was. I was shocked when they came back and they had him immobilized and they were bringing out a vehicle to take him off the field. The only thing that I could remember something like that didn't look so bad but wound up being catastrophic, was when Dale Earnhardt Sr. died at Daytona.
Right, yeah.
And in the crash, I think we probably all seen that. It didn't look that bad. You've seen a hell of a lot, worse, and guys walk away. And of course, he didn't. He died in that crash. And then when they showed the replay on Rollins, I watched it several times and thought, he just kind of rolled over and he kind of sat up at the end. I thought, yes, his neck was kind of twisted a little bit, but he didn't, crumple over in a heap that would suggest that, oh my gosh, we better get Dr. Klaus there immediately, I guess, to administer a pap smear, I guess is probably what Klaus would be able to do, but he would be able to check that part of it out at least. It didn't seem that big, but I don't think we can expect to see him play this week. It doesn't sound like Randall's going to play this week because now he's got an injured shoulder on top of the knee injury, the groin injury. I think you're going to wind up in just a disadvantageous situation against a team that's not that good on offense, but they'll be good enough against this Packers defense. And on the other side of the ball, my gosh, the Giants are third in scoring defense and 11th in yardage. This is a good defense.
Yeah.
Packers are going to be challenged on both sides of the ball, I think.
That's true, but we said when we play the Lions, we're going to be in a dome. Stafford is playing really well. Their offense is going to, really burn our defense. This is going to be a high-scoring game. And for all intents and purposes, they scored 17 points on our defense, which was pretty amazing. And in the last part of the game, when they said, Rollins is on the field, I saw on Twitter that Dorliant was being carted off as well.
Yeah, I didn't see the play where he got hurt, but it was a knee injury, I understand.
Yeah, and then Randall is hurt, and so they were. I guess I saw on Twitter they were showing, here's your backfield right now. You've got Gunter, Hyde, and they had Burnett was playing was playing a corner position. But did you at one point when you kind of looked at that lineup, and I think they had Bryce maybe as a safety, but when I looked
Bryce and Evans was on the field too.
Yeah, I kind of thought they put Burnett in coverage, Hyde in coverage. I almost felt like this. I almost feel more confident with this group right now than I was with having Randall and Rollins out there, which they must be hurt because they've been playing so poorly. And wouldn't you know, they ended up making two pretty big stops. One of them might have been a field goal. But I know they did at least 1 3-and-out near the end of with that lineup.
One was an interception too.
Hyde got an interception and stopped a run,
which should have been pass interference. But hey, I'll take it.
Yeah. Right. So the problem is that the Giants come out and go 5 wide. I have no idea who we have to cover.
Well, I think Aaron Ripkowski, he's proven to be quite the dynamic player.
Yeah. Okay. So put Ripkowski on the end. Okay.
Exactly.
As a safety, just get a running start and blow someone up, I guess.
I don't know. To be serious about it, I guess they'll probably activate Josh Hawkins.
Yeah, that's right.
He's been in the doghouse for a time because he was getting burned, and I think he's been inactive. I think the past couple of weeks. So we'll see that. I know they've got if they put Rollins on IR, which I do not know the status of his injury. I don't even know if he came home with the team after the game. We're recording this on Monday afternoon, so we haven't got all the latest updates on stuff. But assuming that injury is serious enough, and judging by how they immobilized him and sent him to the hospital right away, it probably is. I guess they have somebody on the practice squad who they've been busy converting from a wide receiver to a defensive back. Now, I'm not sure that I want that guy on the field covering Odell Beckham.
Yeah, he will be by the third quarter.
Probably, So I guess what you'll see is probably Josh Hawkins out there, I guess. as a corner. You have Hyde probably. Well, maybe he plays the other outside spot and Hawkins plays inside. Not sure. I imagine Morgan Burnett is going to get some coverage duties. Clinton Dix probably remains, somebody who's going to be on the field a lot in coverage. I suppose Bryce or Evans or both, when it comes to the dime package, those might be your dime safeties. I don't know. It's unfortunate that they're playing a team that's got depth at wide receiver and a quarterback who never been my favorite flavor, but the guy has won 2 Super Bowls and he's had success at Lambeau. I think the key, Dave, in my opinion, is not so much the defensive backfield as the ability to get some pass rush.
Well, that's the formula, right? It's got to be offense, score, and score, and score, and then on defense, Clay Matthews is going to have a big game. He's, Perry's going to have to get a sack or 2 on a third down, to force a punt. I think, the other guys are going to have to step up. Maybe Dayton Jones makes a big play. Peppers could, give us more than 50% effort. Those are the guys that are going to, Daniels is going to play as hard as he usually does. If we can put pressure on Eli, I think you're going to need 3 or 4 sacks. Unlike third down kind of sacks to force them to punt. And then I think that's how we beat the Giants. And it's possible. I think those guys are relatively healthy. I think Matthews was pretty invisible, though, in this game. How many tackles did he one tackle. Yeah. So, and there was a couple. There's one play, I think it was for a first down for the Lions, where someone caught a third down pass in front of the third down marker, and Matthews sort of could have dove and maybe made the stop. It ended up kind of taking a roundabout route to tackle him, and let his guy get a first down. And I thought, he's not 100%, but if he can at least get the rush going for the playoffs, maybe he's saving it a bit, and in the playoffs he can play as well as he played last week. Then I think that's the formula to beat the Giants. I think the Giants are very similar to what the challenge we faced with Detroit. It's just now we play at home. Stafford is a respectable quarterback. I think Eli Manning is in that same group. Detroit's defense is probably not as good as the Giants. Maybe that's the big difference.
I think that's the biggest difference right there is, and I don't know if you watched any of the Giants game against the Redskins. I watched a little bit of it because very concerned about how that one was going to come out. And on the road, they played well. Cousins did not play well, but
no.
Is that a case of him not being that good, or because the Giants' defense is pretty good? I'm not 100% sure. So they're a defense. The Giants are a defense. I think that can cause problems on the road. They've proven that they can do that. I just think this is a tough matchup on both sides of the ball. Packer offense is good, but you're playing against a good defense. Packer defense is suspect, which this isn't a great Giants offense, but I think they're going to look a lot better because of Green Bay's defensive shortcomings.
Yeah, but it's the same with their defense. They can have a good defense, and the Packers are playing on offense as well as they can. I don't care what defense. It's very tough to stop Aaron Rodgers when he can avoid pressure. He's got more than a few wide receivers that are playing at a very high level. Nelson's playing very well. Adams doesn't make key drops, is playing well. Allison's come on. Hopefully Cobb can play next week and get you a few catches. Their offense can be very strong. Ripkowski played, I thought, excellent, but he got hurt. Is that why he all of a sudden disappeared from the game? I guess that was the.
I don't think so, because I think they just switched tactics in the second half and went to Montgomery. They didn't play Montgomery much at all in the first half, and they handed the ball off to 22, who, I was amazed. The guy ran great with the ball.
Yeah, he did. Yeah,
he was not the leading, ball carrier though. That was Aaron Rodgers with 10 carries. So much for those, calf and hamstring injuries. The guy was moving great inside and outside of the pocket.
Yeah, he really looked good and just in time. If Rodgers is gimpy on that leg against the Giants, that's a problem too. So, I think this game, I think the Packers are favored. I thought the line was somewhere around like 3.5, or maybe that was the Lions game. No, I think it came out like a higher number, like 6 or something.
I thought it came out at 4.5. That was my, yeah.
I thought it came out higher, and like a lot of money went on New York, and then kind of squeezed it up.
Maybe that's why the last I saw was 4.5, and it maybe came out at 6, and they said, hey, let's adjust this back and get some money on the other side of that.
Yeah.
I have a question on this offensive issue though, and they ran the ball for 153 yards, 61 by Ripkowski. I mean, it was enough to give them a chance to do some play action stuff. Okay, so that's fine. But Geronimo Allison, I mean, the guy has far exceeded any expectations I possibly could have had. And it does raise the question again: are they a better team with him on the field, with Nelson, Adams, and Allison, with Adams and Allison, playing outside, Nelson in the slot? Are they better off doing that than having Randall Cobb on the field if he can play this week? What do you think?
I think if Randall Cobb can play, I think you play him. I would never hand off to him ever again. But I think the guy is so clutch. Can't you keep Allison and Cobb on the field at the same time, though? Do you have to choose between those two?
Well, they do play, 4 wides, and so definitely, yeah, you could certainly do that in a variety of formations, but kind of their base that they run is going to be 3 wide receivers, a tight end with Cook, and probably then the running back would be Ty Montgomery. So in effect, you've got 5 receivers, but you've got 3. It's kind of split out, and then you have the tight end. So it's just, do you go with Cobb, who's like, 5'10"-ish and 195 pounds, something like that. And Allison isn't a lot heavier, but the guy's a bigger target. He's 3 inches taller. He's got those, the long levers, as they like to say in the scouting biz. Makes him a bigger target. And he also is on the same page with Rodgers, and he is on the same page with Rodgers in the way that Janis just never is or can be. On that touchdown, the 8.5-second touchdown, somehow Allison, knew to spin away and get open and be where Rodgers thought he was going to be. Yeah. And I'm not sure if that's something you can teach a guy or if you just kind of have the right feel. I mean, and this is all throughout sports. I mean, there's so much of it's just kind of instinct and feel, and I don't think Janis is a very instinctive, kind of player. I just don't think that's his deal. I mean, he's got physical abilities. I just don't think he has the football sense, the football savvy, as they say. And Allison just does. Yeah. I think Cobb's got that too. But Cobb, man, he's got an ankle now, and he seems like he's racking up injuries, and he's a smaller target. I love Randall Cobb. I think he's great. I think he was a great fighter back when he was Randall Tex Cobb.
Yeah.
He's
great in the movies. Yeah.
Absolutely he was. But I'm just wondering if they aren't better right now with the Twitter porn star Geronimo Allison.
Well, I think Cobb at 80% or 90%, you're right. I would go with 100% Allison. But if it were 100% Cobb, then I think I would run more plays and have Cook not be in if I had to choose, or have one less running back, or I guess maybe you need to have someone in the backfield for protection purposes. And it really is pretty awesome, I think, and what's helped the offense is having Ty in the backfield. Sometimes he blocks, sometimes he goes out in a pattern, and he's your safety valve. But Cook, I mean, if I'm a safety covering Cook, so Rodgers is in the shotgun. He's got Ty Montgomery next to him, and now Cook is lined out as a wide receiver. Do you cover him differently than if it's Cobb? Because if you're covering that the same, I'd rather have Cobb in the formation because he's faster than Cook. I mean, Cook's a bigger target, but I like Cobb. Maybe, I don't know. I guess, but I don't know if I would choose between Allison and Cobb. It might be Cook and Cobb that they're choosing, but it's a great choice to have. I mean, I think it all comes down to if Cobb says, "Hey, I'm ready, I can play," but it's not the Cobb of old, then you're right. Don't mess it up. Maybe have him in for a couple plays, or maybe he can play that Ty Montgomery role, or maybe he can, field punts back there. But I I wouldn't force Cobb on the field if he's not 100%.
I wonder if they couldn't use Cobb the way they like to use Janis once in a while in that sweep, that jet sweep or that reverse end around. I'm not sure exactly which is technically correct, but it's when the wide receiver can carry the ball. Something the Badgers did with great effect today during the Cotton Bowl. I'm not sure if that's a good situation for Cobb. Getting the ball kind of out in space that way. So when he's on the field, maybe he gives you that sort of look. What he doesn't give you is what. Cook is an extra 6 or 7 inches taller. I mean, he's a big man. He's 6'5".
Yeah, he is.
And having him across the middle, they are a heck of a lot better team with him. Now, he's not a world beater. He's not, Jermichael Finley at his peak even. But he is a big target who can run, and he does get open in the middle of the field. He had just 4 catches this week. But, he gives you a lot more than Richard Rodgers does, let me put it that way.
Yeah, Richard Rodgers, he only catch 1 ball? I thought he caught 2 balls. Maybe there was a penalty on a play that they accepted.
I think that's right, but the one that he did have, didn't he actually beat somebody and make somebody miss?
He broke a tackle. Yeah, someone tweeted like he just got yards after the catch, and it happened. Like the world just turned upside down for a second. Yeah, he broke a tackle. So I think the offense is clicking pretty well. If the Giants can kind of limit the Packers to, say, 24 points, let's say, 20 to 24 points, then I think it's a 50-50 game. I think our defense is going to give up at that much probably at their average or best. They're going to give up sort of around that same amount, so it's going to be a really tight game. But if we can score in the 30s, then I think it's a game we win. And I think you got to give us the edge, the fact that we're home. Even though they've come in and beat us twice, I think one year – the 2011 year, that was weird circumstances. There was a bye week. One of the coaches had a funeral. Don't you remember?
That's right.
Like
he's the son of Joe Philbin. Joe Philbin's son.
Right.
Did he son fall through the ice, or they found him in the rain? It was a bad deal.
Yeah, and they were even that season. They weren't hot at the end. They had lost the second to last game, so they there was kind of a bad vibe with that team a bit, and then.
They were 15-1. I mean, it couldn't
true.
have been that bad.
No. But you know what I mean. I mean, they were very good early and middle, and then toward the end, they lost the game. I don't know. There's a vibe going on there, and then the Favre game. That was, Favre couldn't play in the cold anymore. So this mystique of the Giants coming to Lambeau Field is maybe a bit overstated. I mean, the Packers are a hot team right now. I like their chances. I think they win. Less than a touchdown, but I think they win.
You're looking at weather forecast that looks like mid to upper teens in Green Bay on Sunday. So it's going to be cold, but it doesn't look, at least at this point, the forecast isn't showing, sub-zero temperatures, that sort of thing. Now, they will be playing late in the afternoon. It's a 3:40 Lambeau Field time kickoff. So if the high for the day is, 15, I don't know, by that time it's probably in the, low teens, maybe getting close to 10 by the time the game is over. So, yeah, going to be cold. Don't know about what factor the wind will be. No talk yet of any kind of snow. So if it's one of those days, and, you lived in Wisconsin for a long time, that it can be cold. It could be 12 degrees, but if there's no wind, it's not that bad.
No,
yeah,
right.
I mean, there's probably people, listening, our friends in Australia listening to this show and say, what? How can that possibly be okay?
Yeah.
But really, if there's not wind, that should not impede the game at all. I mean, the football is kind of hard and it's a little slippery and things like that. But, those guys are wearing those gloves now, and, they still should be able to have some success if it's just cold and you don't have the other factors involved in it. I'm not sure, though. You're seeing did you say a touchdown, Vic?
I think under a touchdown. A touchdown. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, I think it's going to be single digits, but I think the Packers win. Yeah, I do. I think they're hot. I think they're coming home. I think they're going to play. The defense is going to play with a lot of emotion. I mean, they're on a roll. It has this feel of 2010 to me. I can't shake it. We said it a couple weeks ago, and they're getting sort of hot at the right time. The injuries are terrible. At least in 2010, Woodson, Tremont Williams, those guys were doing really. So the defense was, Matthews was becoming a real force. Defensively they were peaking too. So that's very different than 2010. But the formula is the offense is so good that it puts pressure on the other offense, and that's when turnovers happen. And I think we can beat the Giants. Then we go to, if we had to go to Atlanta or Dallas, then I think we say, look, the season's been great. Let's give it our best shot and see what happens. Because I think either of those games would be very tough for the Packers to win. But even though I want Super Bowls or bust, I would feel satisfied if we can get to that game and give it a good shot. But I think the Giants, it's a winnable game.
Well, either one of those games in Atlanta or Dallas, I think, are more favorable conditions for the Packers offense. Assuming now that they're going to live and die by offensive football, I think that playing in those environments will give them the best chance. I don't think they are good enough to beat Dallas. Dallas beat them at Lambeau. I don't see that. However, they did go to Atlanta earlier in the year, lost by 1 point.
Yeah.
Now,
when they were not playing well.
Oh, right, exactly.
Yeah, right.
And so I like their chances against Atlanta better than I do against Dallas. Of course, they have to get through the Giants first, and I'm not sure they'll be able to do that. You're predicting less than a touchdown victory, but a victory nonetheless.
Yep.
I don't see it happening just because the matchups don't appear to be favorable. I'm not enamored with the Giants. I know the Packers beat them earlier in the season. This is a different Giants team. We talk often, Dave, about how a team looks in September or October has no relation to how they're going to look in December or January. And I think the Giants are one of those teams. I do not believe the conditions or the matchups favor the Packers. I think they will lose by less than 10 points. But I just can't feel good about the condition of their secondary. I have no idea how they are going to combat that unless they get a hellacious pass rush, and I don't have any reason to believe that the Giants' offensive line is going to allow that to happen. So, like it or not, I think Manning is going to do enough to score points, and I think the Packers are going to be more challenged against a pretty good Giants defense. So I think the Packers probably lose this one, but unlike you, I'm not a Super Bowl or bust guy. I am thrilled that they were able to win the last 6 games, win the division, make the postseason when I really thought it was over for them 6 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So I'm, again, you can't really be satisfied completely, but I certainly am happy with the excitement that we've all gotten out of the last 6 weeks.
I agree. And on that note, should we take a break?
I think it's about time we take a break. Let's see. Packers 10-6 at this point. I believe I called 10-6 at the beginning of the season, Dave.
I bet you. I think I was more optimistic.
I think you were like. Were you like
I think 11-5.
11-5, I think you were, yeah. But I don't think either one of us felt pretty good about those predictions after Game 10. So Packers move to 10-6. They win the division, and we get to talk playoff football. We get to watch one more game of Packers football at least this season. So it's all good. Packers Therapy is going to take our mid-show break, and we are going to be back in just a bit. Chris and Dave back with more Packers Therapy. Moving along a little bit, Dave, one thing I have been thinking about, and I think somebody may have mentioned this in one of the post-game shows or mentioned something like it, but it occurred to me when I'm thinking about the 2016 season. They started off kind of inconsistent, and of course had the horrific losing streak in the middle and finished strong. In lots of ways, I thought 2016 was a mirror image of 2015 when they started out 6-0, and then they kind of limped and struggled, and they wound up making the playoffs in the end, but they just really weren't as good as the season wore on as they were at the beginning, which is the opposite of how it worked this season. The result, though, is pretty much the same. They wind up in the postseason.
Yeah, it's interesting because that's 10 games to finish last season, 2 playoff games, and then 10 games to start this season. So that's 22 games that their offense just didn't click. I mean, there may be some games in there that they did okay. I think there was a Eddie Lacy game against Minnesota where they ran for a lot of yards. And this year, I don't know if there was any early games where they, let's see, was there any that they particularly looked good? I mean, they looked good against the Lions in the first half.
The Lions game that we saw, yeah, the first half, was it 31-3 at the half? I mean, it was, they looked terrific.
And I mean, against the Giants, they looked okay, and then they really struggled. But I wonder what in the world happened in those 22 games.
I cannot begin to explain it. How can you go from looking as good as they did, and then, as I recall last year, it was right after the bye, they played Denver, and Denver's great defense, and Denver solved them.
Yeah.
And it seemed like, I don't know if it was a formula for other teams. I don't think so, because not every team has Von Miller and all the talent that Denver has. Would the Packers lose confidence after that? I'm not sure what it was, but they certainly got off track. And, getting Jordy Nelson back wasn't a magic cure either. But then all of a sudden, somewhere along the line, maybe losing Eddie Lacy, forced them to change their offense. They found a new way to move the ball, and it was all good again. And to me, I don't know that there's a definitive answer, but it is mystifying how it can go from so good to so bad for so long and then be so good again.
Yeah, I agree. I hope someone writes a book someday of McCarthy or Rodgers or something that could give some kind of inside scoop of what happened. Or there certainly was some frustration. This year, Rodgers talked about guys not playing as hard. At the end of last year, there was kind of rumors that McCarthy was frustrated with Thompson. I mean, there's definitely rumblings going on behind the scenes, but you're right. The 6-0, they looked unbeatable, and now their offense looks unbeatable. And that for all that in between time, it was not just average. It looked terrible. Lots of 3-and-outs, and Rodgers playing poorly. I don't know if we'll ever know, but it certainly is something to observe. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about too was there is some talk, I guess, before the game that Ted Thompson might retire.
I was going to mention that to you as well. Yeah. Now, had you heard this before this time?
No, I haven't.
Because this was the first I had heard it. It was it Adam Schefter or somebody had tweeted this out, and it caught me by surprise because I figured, Ted was going to hang on here for a while yet. What do you think of that?
Well, I think there's a couple of things that could be coming into play. There's a number of teams that need GMs and could be going after a guy that the Packers want to keep.
Right.
So if they think Elliott Wolf is the future, is it San Francisco needs a GM, and there's a few others that need GMs. I guess Buffalo might, but I don't know if anyone wants to go out there. If they really want to keep someone, they might have to make a move now and make Ted kind of a honorary, advisor or something like Ron Wolf had. The other thing I think that could happen, someone said this on a call-in, and it's a really awful thing to sort of speculate on, but it makes a lot of sense. But they had speculated that Ted Thompson had gone through a health scare. Have you heard? Did you hear that?
What I heard is that somebody speculated that he had a stroke.
Yeah, that's the health scare I was referring to, and that's why he kind of looks the way he does. I think even Wilde mentioned something where Wilde rarely criticizes, the front office.
This was over the summer where he questioned whether or not he had taken too many hits in the head.
Yeah, he kind of looked, which is not funny if he had a stroke. But one thing that is
funny is that he didn't say it. I mean, why would you say that?
Yeah, that's true.
What are you, a freaking neurologist in your spare time?
But what we do know is he's kind of disappeared from the media. He never talks. I don't think he's done any post game that I can recall.
No, he was quoted in the Bob McGinn article following the game yesterday.
Okay.
Now again,
it's not
an
interview.
Not a video. It's not a video thing, but he was interviewed by McGinn, and his comments were written up. Now that doesn't tell you how he answered them, if he, what pondered over them, if he was slurring his speech. It's hard to know. But McGinn did write the comments, and they were typical, Ted, kind of vacuous comments. But he was, in fact, at the game and interviewed, and McGinn didn't. I guess McGinn probably wouldn't, because he's not apparently Dr. Wilde, who can diagnose someone's brain problems. But so he apparently is visible, but he's never been the kind of guy to stand in front of cameras and give his thoughts about how the game went. I mean, that's just not who he is.
Well, and I think but it could certainly, if it's time to move on, or they're going to lose someone good, this could be a good time for him. They've made the playoffs so many times in a row. They've kind of gone through a scare and made the playoffs again. He could kind of go out now and have people look at him and saying, he was successful. As one Super Bowl under his belt. I hope that it's not that he has a stroke, but I hope that it's true. I hope that he kind of fades to the background and they have someone new that maybe can use the same kind of scouting process, at least from rounds 3 down. Maybe get a new sort of feel for rounds 1 and 2 and use some free agency to fill in the gaps once in a while. I know that you think that we're spoiled. They've been very successful. Yes. Don't mess with the formula. I would like to see that change. I'd like to see the coaching staff stay in place. If you could have a nice transition, that would be preferable than a bad one. But it made me think, going back to the whole, is Ted sick? I guess maybe, I don't know if that part is true, but I wonder if the role of GM has been by committee already, or that there has been,
interesting.
It's been Ted and Elliot Wolf. And so, it's time to let him just kind of take it. He's been doing about 50% of it anyway. And so, because Ted is kind of stepping back slowly. I wonder if some of that is happening. Again, it's possible to speculate, but I think it is strange that he's more or less disappeared from the media. I don't ever recall them showing him on the camera up in the box either.
Oh, yeah. That used to be a stock shot they would do every week. Ted's white head kind of sticking out there, and they would show him emotionless pretty much. Right.
Have you seen that shot?
No. I mean, and I think that's a really good point, because that was something they did pretty much every week. Right. I could see Ted in a role, and I think what he likes to do is Monday morning get on the plane and go to, I don't know, Texas, SMU. And then, he looks at film there and he looks at players. Then Tuesday he drives over to, Houston and, looks at film there. And then he drives over to Mississippi on Wednesday and, all that stuff. And then he comes back in time for the game on, Saturday or something like that. If they did that for him and said, all right, hand over the job as GM to somebody else, whether it's Alonzo Highsmith or if it's Elliot Wolf, whoever it's going to be, and then said, but you can stay, as a part. If you really enjoy doing this, you're not ready to retire, you can be essentially kind of a college scout, without portfolio. You can go wherever you want. You can scout whoever you want. You can use all your contacts. You can go watch players. You can file your reports, and we'll pay you half of what you're making now, something like that. I think he might be happier, and the Packers might be better off.
How would you tell if he's happier? You can't multiply a number by 0. That's.
I don't think he's an unhappy guy at all. I just think he's a guy who doesn't. Well,
happiness is an emotion, isn't it?
He doesn't. I don't think he displays his emotions, at least publicly. He doesn't really. He's kind of atonal, I guess you might say. I mean, that's just kind of who he is, and I don't know if that's part of that, stoic, Texas, like you hear your pilot, right? You're on the plane, and it's always kind of that, that very flat, twangy, going through a little turbulence now, might get a little chop. That kind of thing. Yeah. I think that's kind of how Ted lives. He's sort of like the pilot when you're, gonna be flying through a thunderstorm or you're going to be landing on an icy runway. Yeah, might get a little slip here, but I think we'll be all right. Yeah, it might be a little late getting into your destination. I just think that's kind of the way Ted operates his life. So that's why I think in terms of making him happy, this may be what he would like to do, and it might also benefit the organization. But what you can't deny is that under Ted, and I know people laughed at McCarthy when he said he was I'm a highly successful NFL head coach. And he is. And I think Ted Thompson's been a highly successful NFL general manager. So I'm not in any hurry to change out a formula that I believe works. But on the other hand, I don't want to see them lose the next generation of leadership. You can already see that the guys who were with them, look at it right now. Kansas City in the postseason.
Yep.
Oakland in the postseason.
McKenzie.
And
yep.
okay, the turnaround in that operation, I was shocked that he was able to get traction there. I thought that was a whole mess, and maybe the death of Al Davis helped out. Maybe that made it easier for him to be successful. But so many people have gone there and failed, and McKenzie's done a great job. So there's a pretty good what's the proper coaching tree, I guess you might say. The fella in Washington too, isn't he a part of that? The guy in Seattle,
well, certainly Schneider in Seattle. Yeah. Yep. Now, and they all use free agency, by the way, but
right.
Yeah,
sure,
they have there is a whatever they do is set up the organization a certain way. There seems to be a methodology that has worked under Ted. It's hard to argue with. That's true. I have my fingers crossed that we get someone new. I'd like to see someone someone else play with the team with Aaron Rodgers or have a Hall of Fame quarterback as the guy at the top. So we'll see. But I thought that was a really interesting. We'll probably certainly stay on it. I think the fact that rumors start like that means that something is in the works. Maybe it's not this year, but that the end may be in sight. It's maybe not this year. It might be next year. Those things don't just pop up usually randomly, but we'll see.
Well, it will be interesting to see how it plays out. I would hate to see them lose more young talent. And I know a lot of people think very highly of Alonzo Highsmith as well. I mean, and not just as a running back. He was pretty good as a running back as well. But those are two guys I think they probably want to hang on to. And if it means, freeing Ted to do what he likes to do best, and so that they can put a new general manager in place, I think that's probably something they need to consider. But I don't think that's going to be something we're going to deal with probably until after the Super Bowl. I can't imagine that they would make an announcement like that before the season's entirely done. Yeah. I think that's probably something.
Certainly not this week.
No, of course. Yeah.
If they lose this week, depends on how much of a transition they have to go through. It might be very easy. Like I said, it might be giving someone from 50% to 100%, and next day everyone shows up and it's pretty much same as usual. So it might not be that big of a transition, but we'll see. I'm guessing the way they do things in Green Bay is nothing is quick. I think it would somewhere in February, March, before the draft. We'll see. But
well, they would have to do it before free agency because
that's true.
The person calling those shots, and that's why, and they wouldn't do it running up. I think you're not even allowed to make those kind of announcements running up to the Super Bowl because they don't want to take the focus off the game. So it wouldn't surprise me to see like the week after the Super Bowl they announce some kind of transition.
Now, one thing I am interested in is just because Elliott is Ron's son, does that make him is he got to have extra pizzazz, because of the name, and is he really qualified? I mean, I'm sure that they know. I mean, if he's a bumbling idiot, he's just Ron's son. They wouldn't have kept him around. But I wonder, I don't like to just hand people jobs just because of, their parents or they worked with so-and-so, that they are earning it on their own. We have no way of knowing this, but I
can tell you that Clay Matthews disagrees with you.
Well, he earned it on his own, though.
As does T.J. Watt, I might add. So, yeah.
Well, they certainly have shown their ability, and I would like to see T.J. Watt as a Packer next year.
Oh man! Well, did you hear what our good friend Chad said?
Yeah.
His view is, and this is not Badgers therapy, but T.J. Watt, the outside linebacker for the Wisconsin Badgers, who's put together just a tremendous season, and it has been very much like Clay Matthews' senior season at USC, where a guy, who had played but not been spectacular in his earlier years, but puts together a great senior year and runs up the draft board. Well, Chad made the point that if T.J. Watt should have a good combine, in other words, if his measurables come in and look, strong, look solid, that like Matthews, because you have the whole, birth line thing going on, that they will probably give T.J. Watt like an end of the first round grade, because he is the JJ's little brother, and he did put together this great season. If his measurables are good, and he had a good game today too, by the way, in the Cotton Bowl, Chad said he wouldn't be surprised to see him go toward the end of the round, which is where the Packers are going to be drafting, and that would be real nice if they would be able to essentially draft Clay Matthews' replacement.
Well, yeah, or his counterpart.
Well, it would be his counterpart for now, but when Clay's deal is up, and I'm not sure when it is, when it comes due, but whenever that time happens, I can't see them hanging on to him. But if they had a guy on the roster, maybe who had been there a year or two serving his apprenticeship, you talk about a seamless transition. That would be absolutely fantastic. Yep. And of course, the local guy thing is nice too.
That would be nice. Yeah, we should get to the betting lines pretty soon. Do you have any other things to touch on?
We've got some correspondence, but should we do the betting lines first and then our correspondence?
Yeah, let's do that. We had a lot of people play this last week. We have
a lot. What is a lot?
A lot is 22.
Oh, no, that might be a record.
I think that might be. There are a lot of lines here that 22 doesn't sound like a ton, but I'm used to seeing the spreadsheet have like 7. So Mike is making it easy for people to play.
Wait a second now. Do you think Mike is maybe inventing people and he's actually playing it himself?
There could be. There's a few names in here that
look a little shady to you?
Yeah, made up. Okay. Some of them just consonants thrown together. Yeah.
Or maybe we have just a lot of degenerates who listen to this podcast. I'm sure of that actually, and they'll gamble on anything, including lines that I set.
That's true. Well, we do have a single winner, and I'll let you know at the end. They got 6 out of 7.
All
correct,
the single winners, man,
which is pretty amazing. In fact, they're pretty close to the tiebreaker too. So let's go through.
Is Beyonce the single winner? No, it's all the single ladies. I'm sorry. Okay.
Sorry, okay.
Never mind.
That's a reference I didn't even know. You're more hip than I am.
No, because that's like 10 years old, that song, I think.
Oh, okay. So number 1, I said, how many yards would Jordy Nelson have? You set the line at 86. I took the over. I thought Jordy was going to have a big game. He got shut down for a big part of the game.
Stupid. You were so dumb.
Yeah.
How could you be so dumb?
It's just the way I roll.
It's just terrible.
66 was his total yards. So the under on that one. Number 2, Clay Matthews total tackles.
Oh, that's gotta be good.
We went with hot hands from last week. You set the line at 3.5, and I took the over. And he had one total tackle.
But Clay did play though.
He did play. And
he did play. Okay, all right.
And not well though.
No.
We were very nervous about Detroit's total offense, so we said at the total offensive yards, you set the line at 470. I took the under, and I was correct at 423. Yeah. In fact, we took our total Detroit yardage as your tiebreaker. I said 435, so that was pretty close.
You were very close. Nicely done.
Not bad, right?
All right. Yeah.
Number 4, how many turnovers will Green Bay create, I believe? You set the line at 2.5. I took the under, and it was 1. It was the Micah Hyde interception.
It probably should have been 0, but okay.
Yep. 5. What was?
Oh, by the way, I'm glad you mentioned this. It actually should have been.
You're right too.
It should have been a pick 6 because our boy Clay. I mean, that was perfectly thrown. Let him just right in his hands.
Yeah.
He had nothing but end zone ahead of him.
I tweeted.
Clay.
I was thinking in this 5-0 run that they had. I said this was the drive. If they're going to go 6-0, this is kind of where a turnover happens. And in that drive, he drops it. And I thought, oh no, that's the formula. Yep. And he dropped it, and now it broke. The spell is done. And but they came back and won, which is pretty remarkable. But yeah, that was a huge drop. But it was kind of like an offset to Stafford missing what's his face in the first series where he's running down the right sideline wide open and he missed him. That would have been a touchdown there too. So kind of even in bad sort of boneheaded plays So I think we were lucky and unlucky in that game with those two plays. Number 5 was, what was the quarterback rating for Aaron Rodgers? You set the line at 107. I took the over, and I got that correct.
Good for you. Yeah.
126. Yes.
Yeah. Well.
Number 6, Adams drops versus touchdowns. Which will have more? You said more drops. I said more drops, and he had 2 touchdowns and no drops.
Yeah, and I don't think he had any drops at all. But his average was really small. It was 5.2.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe it's hard to miss those when they hand you the ball.
Yeah, basically. Now Mike said a couple were close, but they were not replayed, so I give him the benefit of the doubt. All right.
All right.
Fair
Okay.
enough.
Fair.
Mike is the final authority on all these.
He is,
because he's spending time.
Mitno Miller is the arbiter, baby.
Number 7, who will be the second wide receiver in receptions? Reception yards. I'm sorry, we did put down yards. Adams, you said Adams. I said Adams. It was Nelson.
Yeah.
Nelson had number 2, although my ESPN is not showing Nelson, but Geronimo was 1, and Nelson, I guess, was 2, was 66 yards.
Correct. Yep.
Then the tiebreaker was total Detroit yardage, which is 423. The winner this week is Jared Van Cleve.
Hey!
Jared Van Dam, whatever. He
and
won.
His wife, of course, don't forget. She is on our medical staff. She is the associate director of medicine after Dr. Klaus.
Very nice. Well, he won. He got 6 out of 7 correct.
Jared.
Gets the room at the casino hotel by himself.
No. He can bring our associate director of medicine along with him.
He can bring whoever he wants. This is a Vegas trip, but whatever happens.
That is true. But
we're not going to judge.
This is the couple going to Hawaii who are sharing the earbuds so they can listen to Packers Therapy.
Oh, that's true. All right.
They're going to the Packers Therapy Hotel and Casino on the Strip in Vegas. They will be there. Probably, our podcast is known to be exciting foreplay. So, that's all I'm saying.
All right. You ready to do the next week's here?
Oh, God, yes.
All right. Number 1, I got to go back to. There's only so many ideas I can come up with, but I like this one.
You ran out of ideas years ago.
Many.
Yes, years ago.
Number 1, Aaron Rodgers quarterback rating. Got it in the cold against the Giants.
Yeah. Oh, God. Well, I think because of my personal bias, he's not Brett Favre. Playing the Giants in January of 2008. I mean, it's not like that. But I just don't think the conditions are going to be conducive to putting up another 126 passer rating. I think he's going to be okay. I think it's going to be good. I think he'll be in the 90s. I'm going to put it at 96.
96. I'm going to take the over. And that, number 2, Aaron Ripkowski total yards, catching and receiving.
Now this, I'll tell you, he had 61 on the ground, and he had another, 15 through the air, so 76. I can't imagine that they're going to give him the ball that much. However, playing outside in the cold
Lambeau,
might be just what you want to do from the big fella, he proved to be surprisingly nifty with the ball.
Yeah.
So total. He didn't catch a lot of passes, though. I'm going to put his total yardage at 47.
All right, I'm taking the under on that one. I think he's not going to be as successful running the ball against the Giants as he was against Detroit. So I'm going to take under. Number 3, how many receiving yards for Odell Beckham Jr.?
Oh, God. Yeah. Oh, boy.
We should have how many personal fouls will there be in this game, too. But
did you see that stuff that was going on with Josh Norman? Those two guys got to hate each other.
Yeah. Did you see the first game this year? I think it was all out fight.
I didn't see that, but I was watching the game this past week, and it was like every play they were just going at each other.
Yeah.
Now I don't know if he's that way all the time though, or if it's just because
he's a head case.
Yeah, but I can't imagine he's going to be that bad this time. He got 2 personal fouls this week. Is that correct?
I didn't watch it the whole game. I just saw the end, and he wasn't playing. So did he get kicked out? Was that
I'm not sure what the rule is. Is it 2 personal fouls and you're out?
I don't know. I don't know what the story is, but he wasn't playing at the end, which I thought was odd. I wondered if Giants were resting him. But regardless, how many yards do you think of against the Packers?
Oh God, I think it's going to be a big game for him, just because they don't have a lot of good answers to that. I'm going to say 100-yard game, but again, the conditions I don't think are going to be conducive to something that's totally crazy. I'm going to put 110.
Oh, I'm going to take the under. I think he has a decent game, but more like 80s, 90s would be mine.
Okay, all right.
Number 4, how many touchdowns by Green Bay wide receivers? We're getting a lot of touchdowns. We had, how many? We had Allison with 1, Devontae Adams had 2, I guess Rukowski had 1, so Jordy did not have 1. So there were 3 this week. How many touchdowns for wide receivers?
Okay. We're not counting Montgomery. We're not counting Montgomery as a receiver, right? Okay. I'm going to put that number. Jordy didn't have any this past week. I'm going to put that number at 2.5.
All right, I'm going to take the over on that one. I think turnovers are going to be a huge part of this game.
Absolutely.
That's what we'll talk about. So how many turnovers will Green Bay give away? How many times will they turn over the ball to the Giants?
Fumbles and interceptions both. Boy, they have been so good. I think, did I see this right? They've had 1 giveaway in this 6-week run. I think that's what I saw.
Is that?
Because there's been no interceptions.
I can't think of any fumbles.
Yeah, but I think there was one on a punt, maybe. Yeah, I think it's only been 1 giveaway that they've had.
I can't think of it.
So let's see. You remember after the 2011 season, they had fumbled the ball, I think, 3 times all season and fumbled it 3 times in the game against the Giants.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think this game is going to be quite like that. It makes me wonder a little bit, though. Is the team going to relax a little bit, because they did run the table, they did win the division, they did make the playoffs? Do they relax and get sloppy? That's what it is hard to assess. I'm going to put that at. I'll put it at 1.5. I think there's a possibility that they might give up a couple here.
All right, I'll take the under on that one. Then number 6, how many turnovers will the Giants give up? How many will the Packers get?
Well, now, like Matthew Stafford, Eli Manning is one of those guys that'll give you 2 or 3 opportunities a game. And Stafford certainly did his part. It should have been 2 INTs. And Eli Manning's had some absolutely ugly games, but they just haven't come at Lambeau Field. So you want to know how many INTs? I'm going to set the number at 1.5.
That's now fumble recoveries as well. So this is total. So 1.5 for both. I'm going to take the under on that one too. I think these are 2. Did you want to change your number?
'Cause I was thinking just Manning's interceptions. But you know what, though? I'm going to still keep it at 1.5.
Okay. I'll take the under. I'll say under both. I think they play a pretty clean game. Number 7, how many sacks will the Giants get on Rodgers? That's an interesting. I think their defense is good, but he's elusive. How many sacks? How many sacks were there? There were at least, let's see, sacks were this week were 2. No.
I won.
One. I'm sorry. I was looking the wrong side. 1 by for the Lions. So how many do you think the Giants will get?
Well, I think this is going to be a hard one to assess because I don't know about Brian Bulaga.
Yeah, good point.
Now, Bulaga went out of the game, and then Spriggs came in, and on one of the last plays of the game, Spriggs got hurt, and then you wind up with Don Barclay at right tackle. Now, again, I've not seen the injury report, and this is going to be dramatically different. If Don Barclay's playing, I think we could see...
all bets are off, yeah.
We could see 4 or 5 sacks, not just there, but I mean they're compensating so somebody else gets beat. But if Bulaga plays, you're talking about a couple. So let me split the difference. I'm going to set the line at 2.5.
2.5. All right, I'm going to take the over on that one. So 7.5. Who do you think the leading rusher will be for the Packers?
Boy, that's a good one. I never would have guessed Aaron Ripkowski this week. I could tell you that much.
Yeah.
And leading rusher, I'm going to say. Now, does it have to be a running back, or can it be?
No, it could be anybody. Yeah, anybody.
I'll say Aaron Rodgers, not Aaron Ripkowski. Aaron Rodgers is the leading rusher.
I'm going to take Montgomery. I'm tempted to take Michael Because,
I thought about that too, actually. Yeah.
Well, only because he's the least likely to have it. I mean, they seem to be rotating them around, and I could just see all of a sudden he having the hot hand, and he's a guy. Although I was going to make a point earlier, I've been disappointed with his production, and I wonder. We talk about having Lacey, Michael, and Montgomery as your running backs. I wonder if Michael is not in the mix as much. I mean, the guy runs faster and harder than Montgomery is this real slippery sort of take your time and then burst through a hole, and Michael is much faster, more aggressive kind of a runner. But man, his production is not good.
He had the one good run, the 42-yard touchdown run.
Yeah.
But
right.
other than that, he really hasn't had a lot. I mean, he only had 6 yards in this pass game and 3 carries.
I wonder, the Montgomery style of the hole doesn't develop the way it should. You kind of have to kind of feel your way through because our blockers aren't these kind of road graders that just move guys around. So you can't just plunge into where it's supposed to be. You got to adjust. And that might be more of Michael's game. So maybe he's not a great fit. But anyway, so 7 3/4. Who do you think will have a higher quarterback rating, Eli or Rodgers this week?
Oh boy. Well, I'm actually going to go with Aaron Rodgers. I think Aaron's going to be in the upper 90s, but I do think there's going to be a couple of INTs by Eli Manning, and that's going to hurt his overall passer rating. I still think he's going to be okay. I think he'll be good enough to win because of the Packers' crappy secondary, but I do think that he'll be like in the low to mid 90s.
Yeah, I was going to pick Eli. I think I'll take Aaron. But I think I could see where Eli has a pretty good game, but the Packers still win. And then the tiebreaker is Aaron Rodgers' quarterback rating itself. I'm obsessed with his quarterback rating this week. You said that you thought 96.
That's where I set the line. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to take 115. I'll say so.
Wow, you think one? Well, I guess that makes sense because you think the Packers will win. I think if Rodgers has a 115 passer rating, I think that's the chances of them winning a game. You said about 6-ish points. Yeah, I think that's very, very possible. Although it could be a game where he has a 115 passer rating, they score 30 points and they lose 33-30.
Yeah, no, that's right. That's very possible. I thought that's what could happen this week, and it didn't. So
yeah. Well, I thought the same way. I would think I predicted 38-31, but it wound up better. Were you nervous at the end of that game, by the way, after the Hail Mary pass went for the touchdown, and now they were in position to maybe come back with an onside kick and tie the game? Well,
here's the terrible thing is I turned the game off. We had company, and the TV we were watching it is close to our guest bedroom. So I ended up saying goodnight and thought, the end of the game was just dragging on, and I said, this is enough. And so then I saw the score later. They talked about a Hail Mary, and I thought, Hail Mary? They must be talking about last year. And so I guess the Lions got one. I did see the highlight on YouTube or somewhere, on ESPN. And then I guess they even lined up for an onside kick, so I missed all of that. I'm glad I didn't. If I had sat down there that evening and found out that they lost, that would have nearly killed me. But so I wasn't nervous because I didn't realize it was happening. Were you? I heard it was a flawlessly executed onside kick.
Yeah, I will never view those kind of things the same after that Brandon Bostic, debacle and the NFC Championship game at Seattle. And so, yeah, I did get a little bit nervous, and things were kind of coming apart for the Packers. They couldn't run the clock out. Spriggs gets hurt. They give up that Hail Mary for some reason. It was just terrible. So yeah, I was a little bit concerned. I'll be honest about that. But those kind of things, the chances of that happening again, so damn low, and that's the way it turned out. It was just fine and dandy. But I once you've experienced that NFC Championship game, nothing looks quite the same anymore.
That's right. Fair enough.
Well, we've got some correspondence, actually quite a lot of correspondence, as a matter of fact, this time around. I'm going to start with our friend Tom in Germany, the MSOE grad. he said he didn't get an iPod until 2011, so he was unaware that we were doing Packers Therapy before that time. Says it means he didn't listen to us during the Super Bowl, the 2010 Super Bowl, and the run itself. He wasn't able to hear that. And he thinks it would be really fun to listen to it, and wanted to know if we have those shows available in an archive. And we have looked around that you don't have them on your hard drive.
I switched computers at some point, so
Okay.
I don't know where. You'd think we'd save them, but we just don't care that much.
Well, in those days we were on Packer Chatters.
Yeah, right.
And that website went out of business. And our friend Wally scooped us up in his loving arms and put us on Pocket Doppler for a couple of seasons there. And I want to say that was probably after the Super Bowl run. And then Wally pulled the plug on Pocket Doppler, and we went to where we are now, Packers Talk, or Packers Stock, as you might want to say it. And we asked the guys that run the show over there, Alan CD, if Wally transferred our files to them. Haven't heard back on that one yet. But darn, we'd sure like to make those available to people. I think all of the ones we've done on Packers Talk might be available on that site, but I don't know if they have the ones available before that time. So we're still checking on that, Tom. I know we've done them because we've done podcasts since 2005. We missed a little bit of a stretch. I think it might have been 2011, the year that they won all those games, right? I think that we might have had 6 or 8 weeks there where we didn't do podcasting.
Good question.
For some personal reasons, yeah.
Yeah, it was 11 or 12. But I think we certainly sailed through 10. And so we have those.
We have all those. We recorded all those shows. Yeah, and I don't know where they are. We are looking for them, but you know what I think would help them materialize? People who go to PayPal and Packers Therapy at yahoo.com, if the amount of money is right, they may appear. And Tom, we do accept euros over there as well.
That's right, as we found out. That's right.
Yeah. Okay, but anyway, Tom, we are looking for them. We would like to make those things available to people. I kind of want to relive those times. I kind of like to actually hear some of them, too, to hear what the podcast sounded like. I probably listen to only a couple minutes because I don't even listen to the podcast when I'm recording it. So, let's see. We got an email from our guy Tom in San Luis Obispo, and also Eric Larson in touch with us this week. Got a really great tweet from our young friend Stephen Kilby. He and I were corresponding via Twitter, and he told me he was in Paris. And that's wonderful, but it was the day of the game against the Lions. And you're going to find a place, right, that you're going to be able to watch us. Oh, yes, he assured me he was going to be able to watch the game in Paris. And he tweeted out a picture of him with a young woman, I believe on the Champs-Élysées, perhaps. Oh, my, how our boy has grown up. And I certainly hope that guy has had the talk with young Stephen. That's all I can say. Hopefully that's been taken care of.
We won't do that here on the podcast.
No, that'll be on a different sort of therapy.
Yeah,
so,
right.
Okay. Let's see. We also got a really cool tweet this week. Unfortunately, it was because there was a technical glitch which resulted in the wrong podcast being posted. But I'll tell you, if you want to get a lot of tweets, make a mistake like that, people will be all over your Twitter feed. So it's good to know. It's good to know that people are paying attention, and a lot of people, including Antonio Aguilar, was in touch. Now, I had not known Antonio before, but he was concerned that the wrong podcast had been posted, and that actually got us working early in the morning to fix that. But it turns out that Antonio is a stand-up comic from Madison, and I went to his website, and I watched, I think it was like a 10-minute clip of one of his shows. Pretty funny stuff. Antonio Aguilar, and I will spell that so you can go and check out his site. Antonio, spelled the same as the former Packer receiver, Antonio Freeman. Last name Aguilar, Aguilar. Aguilar. Go to his website, check out his stand-up. Pretty good stuff. I think he also has his upcoming tour dates that are listed there. He is a Packers fan, a listener to Packers Therapy. So go and check it out. And I think that you will enjoy that. But
yeah, it was funny.
The only way that we knew that he was a listener is because we goofed up and he let us know about it. So thank you.
He's now our show comedian. Now we talked about having different roles. We've had some security people step up. Now we have a comedian. We didn't get a gardener or a chef this week, so we still have some openings. But it's nice to know what people do, so that we have issues we can call them up. So for Antonio, I was hoping he'd come and do a show in St. Louis, and he promised me that he would come to St. Louis very soon. So I'm looking forward to seeing a show when he comes. Maybe he could come down to St. Louis if he comes and does a show down here.
That would be very cool indeed. So, Antonio, thank you, sir, for being in touch. Also, Jason was in touch, as was Pete, the secret agent, who has also volunteered to be the head of our security detail. We appreciate that. Pastor Kevin was in touch, also because we had the wrong feed, as was John from Scotland, now living in England. And we have a job application, Dave. And I don't know how you pronounce this. It's Zulu, Yankee, Victor, Lima, Yankee, November. Okay, ZYVLYN. How would you pronounce that?
Say that again?
One of the tweeters, his handle is, and the only way we know him, is ZYVLYN.
Oh, yeah, okay. I don't know how to... No, Zivlin? No.
Zivlin is how I would say it, but I get perhaps it's Dr. Zivlin. Anyway, he wants to be the head of our counseling services office. I think we can make that happen, because anybody with a handle beginning with a Z, that's a good start.
Right, yeah. But it was a little confusing because we kind of hold ourselves out as therapists having a podcast called Packers Therapy, and yet, needing a therapist. I guess even therapists need therapists, right? We all need...
especially therapists.
Yeah. So I think he's got the job.
All right. Congratulations, Zev, shall we say. Okay. Also, Andrew Hetzel in touch. Andrew, who was a graphic designer, as I recall, he cannot be our head graphic designer because that goes to my guy, Simek. But anyway, he thinks Ted Thompson might be past due. And based on our earlier conversation, it may just be right, Andrew. You may get your wish. We'll have to pay attention to that one coming up. Also, Aubrey Fellows in touch with us. Aubrey could be a guy, could be a woman. Kind of hoping it's a woman because we don't have any women listeners as far as I know.
That's
so that would
true.
be cool.
I
have no idea. And also Hornman Matt. Anyway, was in touch with us also. I think everyone was in touch because they weren't getting their therapy and they were irritated and they wanted to make sure that we did something about it, and I guess we did. So sorry about that.
Well, we should put the blame where it's due. And, when I make a mistake, I need to own up to it, right?
Yes, oh, absolutely.
I should. So I just want to say it was Al or CD's fault for 100%. I sent the right one in Dropbox, and it was their fault. So I just want to get that clear. That was not my fault. I've been trying to work on the sound, making sure that I'm loud enough, all that. I've got that all right. And so I would send all your angry tweets to those guys.
I know, because they look forward to that sort of thing. That's exactly.
Yeah.
In fact, they thrive on it. Now, our private investigator, Private Dick himself, Andy Mundy, did he have an idea for a rules change, and then you came up with some kind of cockamamie stupid idea in return? Could you recapitulate that for us, Dave?
Do I need to pause the podcast? I am not prepared for that. Let me see if I can find that. But my cockamamie, no, it's not cockamamie.
It's ridiculous, but go on.
All right. So my idea was, it's kind of my idea when people want to do that, if rather than a kickoff, what you do is you put the ball on the 50-yard line and you put everyone on the squad, everybody in each end zone. You blow a whistle, they all run to the middle of the field, and the person to get the ball starts the first series. I thought that's my idea to change football, to make it more interesting. Just like in baseball, I think if you hit the batter, he should be out. I think that would be also very fun to watch. But here it is. He said that he actually has a one that's kind of interesting. I've heard
why I
that
mentioned
the
it, Dave.
NFL. Well, see, it's the comedian has inspired me to do. Anyway, I've heard the NFL wants to expand the playoffs to 7 teams from each conference.
Yes.
Now, assuming the number 1, then we get a bye, and the 2 through 7 would play the first round. That would give the number 1 seed a bye, which would increase the competition for the top seeding, which I think is a good thing. Keep the games competitive in the regular season longer. My twist on things would be the allowance for the number 1 team to also publicly select one of the remaining 3 teams to play in the divisional round. Imagine after last Sunday game on wildcard weekend, the top seeds from the AFC and NFC hold a news conference at their headquarters to call out their next opponent. It might seem that the top teams would always pick the lowest seed, but if there's a better matchup, they might pick, the second or third seed. I'm sure then there would be locker room material for all that. I think that's a pretty neat idea, rather than just an automatic seeding that the top seeds get to choose who they play as an extra motivator or as a sort of extra advantage. I kind of like that idea, but I mean, mine are pretty good too. But what do you think about those ideas?
Well, first of all, your idea is one that when you were at Mason Crosby's house and you guys were about 3 bowls in to a really nice buzz, I can see where you came up with that one.
Yeah.
Enough said. So on Private Dick Andy Monday, his idea, I think, is absolute nails, but he has an unfair advantage. He's on stakeout, right? He's sitting behind the wheel. He's sitting behind the wheel of his car. It's the middle of the night. He's chain smoking.
Eating sunflower seeds, yeah.
He's eating sunflower seeds, probably drinking Jack Daniels, and he's waiting, for whatever cheating husband is, he's stalking, and he's thinking, boy, I wonder if there were 7 playoff teams. So he's got all this time on his hands. It's unfair that he's able to come up with these genius ideas. But when you have a job like that, that's what happens. Well done, Andy. I like it. I think Roger Goodell should be notified immediately, but he's making $45 million a year, so he probably won't take your call, sadly. And we also had something from Rich Holm this week, and this transitions us into pop culture. Rich, who I think may have been – is he a past winner on the betting lines? I think he
I'm
might
sure.
be.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Well, he had some pop culture ideas. And, of course, my pop culture ideas, of course, would be Antonio Aguilar is my pop culture idea, number
Very
1.
nice, yeah.
Yeah, but Rich, he has The Martian in book and movie format. Now, I didn't even know it was a book.
Oh.
I just thought it was a movie.
Come on. The book, yeah, like every book snob, I will say the book is better. Because it gets into more details of how he kind of survives up in Mars, and it's somewhat technical, but in a way that's entertaining. So the book is great. I read the book before I saw the movie. In fact, the book really ruins the movie because you know how everything kind of ends. And other than seeing him on Mars, but it's a very good book. It was kind of a book of the year kind of a thing for science fiction. I think a couple years ago, but. You saw the movie, at least?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Okay.
It had Matt Damon. I watched it last Christmas, as I recall.
All right. Yeah. No, that's a good one. That's a good one.
And then he also is recommending the book How Not to Be Wrong. He says it's excellent. I don't know what How Not to Be Wrong is about. Do you know this book?
No, I don't. It sounds like one of my kind of books to read, though. How not?
Yeah, it does. Let me see if we. No, well, whatever it is. I'm sure it's.
Why did he recommend that to us?
That's a good. You know what? I hadn't read that deeply, but you may have a good point there. I'm not exactly sure.
Predicted a Lions victory. Yeah, it's strange.
Well, anyway, he says it's an excellent book. Rich recommending 2 books. I mean, that's like awfully heady stuff, Rich. I mean, appreciate that. I did stumble across it's actually a web series that became a regular TV show, if you can call something on True TV a TV show. But my friend Big Snake Man recommended Adam Ruins Everything. Have you seen this show?
No, I haven't. But I love True TV for The Impractical Jokers, if I haven't brought that one up before. But go ahead. What is yours?
Well, Adam Ruins Everything. I think the beaver's name is Adam Conover. He's a comic. And what he does is he, breaks something down something that's kind of accepted as being truth and shows how it's not truth. And usually often there are surprising reasons why things happen, whether it be electoral college or, his belief that, electric cars aren't necessarily good for the environment because it, takes a lot of energy, which is oftentimes, powered by coal in order to run those things. And, of course, that's disputed. But he takes subjects like that, things that are accepted as being truths, and breaks them down, but does it in a very humorous way, kind of a light way. And the half-hour shows I found on True TV a little bit too long, and also if you watch it on their website, you got to sit through the commercials, which is a non-starter for me. So I recommend going to YouTube and watching the YouTube shorts, which are more like about 7 or 8 minutes long. And they are fun, and they are informative, and I would recommend checking it out. Adam Ruins Everything is the name of the show and also the web series.
Yeah, and if you want to download on True TV, do look up Impractical Jokers if I haven't recommended that before. That show will make me laugh all the time, every time. It's the 4 guys that do practical, make themselves do practical jokes on people. It's awesome. It's a really funny show. But my pop culture this week, and we were going to do a top of the year 2016, but we are way deep into this podcast, so I have to try and save it for another one. But I have a book as well. And it's my New Year's resolution, and I'd be curious to tell me what you think. So the book is called Deep Work, and it's basically talking about that in our society that's dominated by social media, instant messages, constant flow of emails, open workspaces, all these things, to be collaborative and quick and short, that we have lost the ability to concentrate, to just sit down and do uninterrupted deep work, they call. And this is true for me. I am bombarded with IMs, emails, people walking in my office. We have an open workspace kind of thing. And by the time it gets 2:30 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon and someone wants to actually have a discussion about something relatively important, my brain is like fried. I can't concentrate. You'll have to set a meeting for 8 tomorrow because I cannot concentrate on it. And I thought this year I want to block off my calendar more, and just when I have a project or want to read or do something, I want to commit a good sort of 2 hours to just doing something and focusing on it. And the point of the book is that in our technology age, so many people are good at multitasking and do all the quick things that actually what's valuable is people who can do deep work and can kind of think through things and deliver quality work rather than just quick work. And that's going to be more and more important, and so we need to train ourselves to kind of get back to doing that. And so I'm reading about halfway through that book. It set up the idea that it's important, and now the second half is how to do it. And so that's where I am right now. But that's the book I'm reading. If you are like that sort of thing, I would think that would be a good book for you, Chris. You probably need to do some deep kind of thinking through long-term issues, and yet you get bombarded by students and faculty and people around that you probably do get interrupted a lot. You should consider deep work as well.
I should consider it, but I just don't have time for it. I'm too busy multitasking. No, I think you're exactly right. And as long as we're this far down the rabbit hole, I think that is one of the central problems that I know that I have. And you mentioned you have it as well. I bet you there are probably a lot of other people and a lot of other jobs that face the exact same things. And there's a lot of societal stressors that are on all of us that are requiring us to work differently than probably our parents or grandparents did. And it is definitely a problem. In fact, it's gotten to the point where if I'm not being constantly bombarded or stimulated by all these external factors, it's almost like you get antsy.
That's exactly right.
You've got this time, and it's like, gosh, I'm so used to being able to going through all of these things and checking off all these little boxes, and that can be kind of gratifying. You get all this stuff done. None of it has substance, but you get it all done, and so you're constantly on the lookout then for what little things can I do, and the truly meaningful, important things that take time and focus and the energy it takes to really sit down and work something through over a period of hours or days. you just don't have the stomach for it because you're so used to working in a different way. And that's why I think a lot of us, and I'm one of these people certainly, you leave work at the end of the day and said, boy, I was busy all day. I accomplished nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
It's sort of like you ate potato chips all day long. It's like you got zero value, but yeah, you ate, and you weren't hungry anymore, but you got nothing of any value for your system because there's nothing of substance that you had. So I think it would be a terrific book. What was the name of the author again? It was far too long for my diminished attention span. The book is called It's a Deep. And who's it by?
Deep Work. And I have to look up for Deep Work is on Amazon, and that's not it. Cal Newport, Newport. He looks like a pretty young guy, but it's Deep Work: Rules for a Focused Success in a Distracted World. And yeah, that is a resolution for me this year. I want to be able to, the point being is you can get just as much done. In fact, you might get more done. And the one book that I come back to a lot is Getting Things Done. I don't know if you've read that one. Maybe you've heard of that. Oh, so there's lots of good strategies in that book if you want to kick off the year in being more productive. Having simple rules, which one I think is just genius, is you turn off your email so it doesn't constantly update, but you check your email at 8 in the morning, at noon, and like at 3:30 or 4, and just do all your email in one spot and then stop it and just do all your other stuff and come back to it. That if you concentrate on your email, you get them all done. But if you just do one at a time all day long, that's so inefficient to do that. So those are the kind of things I'm going to try and focus on this year to be better at. It's just a constant barrage of information and requests and forwarding and all that stuff. I've got to put an end to that. It's too much. So.
Yeah, I totally hear you on that, and I've heard that strategy before too, of just dealing with email at a couple of times during the day makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it does. I haven't done it I tried it maybe a week and I loved it and stopped, but in a client facing, it's harder. But this book is saying it's not. Your clients benefit from your ability to do deep work as well. So anyway, That's a lot of nonsense on a Packers Therapy podcast, but that's my pop culture for the week.
All right. Well, if you would like to be in touch with us, as many people have this past week, you can do so on Twitter. @Packers Therapy is our Twitter handle. If you also want to email us, you can. Many people choose to do that as well. But now Dave and I will only be looking at those emails at a couple times a day and not when they come in.
That's right.
But we're at Packers Therapy. At yahoo.com. That's also the same address if you go to PayPal and you want to send us a couple bucks because you like the podcast. We'd appreciate that. You can go ahead and do that as well.
And if you want to play the betting lines, the email is...
Oh, you know what? I forgot all about that. Yes, we forgot to mention that.
But Mitno Miller is mitnomiller@gmail.com if you want to submit to the betting lines. And I'd like to get up to 30. So if you've never played before, send it in. Mike has respond back to you on a way that you can respond to your answers more quickly. So let's try and get up to 30 this week. That'd be fun.
That would be outstanding. I'm sorry for not giving that to you sooner. Please.
No one's listening at this point either, so we've really ruined it. But we're going to throw the Jacksonville podcast on there this week anyway, so it's all going to be messed up.
Well, maybe I'll put that in the show summary so people can get on it and play the betting lines and have a good time. But anyway, also thanks to iChuck for being in touch this week, and Rob Gardner also in touch with us. We appreciate that, gentlemen, and you know where to get us on Twitter and also our email address, and hope you will also play the betting lines if you are so inclined. Here's hoping, Dave, though, that this will not be the last game coming up for the Packers. They will play at 3:40 Lambeau Field time on Sunday. They will play the New York Football Giants in the first round of the NFC playoffs. It is great to be there again. The Packers coming through 8th season in a row of providing entertainment and excitement and relevance to Packer fans, regardless of how this game comes out. It has been an exciting last 6 weeks of must-win football. So I think we should watch the game on Sunday late afternoon and into the evening. And I think when it's all done, Dave and I will fire up Skype and we will talk about the game again, and we'll share it with you on Packers Therapy as we have done for the last 12 seasons. So stay tuned for that. Stick around for it. And until that time, I'm Chris.
And I'm Dave.
And that's Packers Therapy.
I'm Chris.
And I'm Dave.
And that's Packers Therapy.